As you're speaking there, it strikes me as to where we live now in modernity with regards to the don't judge me culture, the individualist culture. And sometimes I wonder when we are able to paint this picture of what it's become, as in the effects of thinking this way, and, for example, throwing away the Christian culture, I suppose, that was the country Europe was built upon, which was about learning to restrain your worst appetites and developing character, and obviously having more of a social mindset instead of it being just about you and what you can achieve. It makes me ask the question, why are all of these strains of thought so alluring? You know, the individual atomistic thing. We know people are unbelievably unhappy. We know that Britain in particular is one of the loneliest places in Europe, but the same could be said that most countries are getting lonelier who have followed this model. And then we have seen typically that people can be drawn to ideas like anything associated with the left, because it feels good, I suppose, to be thinking that you are communally minded. And then there's all of these global solidarity ideals that people get drawn to. And as you say, that hollows you out from a connection to the people that you spend your time around in the here and now. So I wonder, and I'm just thinking out loud, Connor, and it'd be interesting to hear what you think, do you think things like Christianity being thrown on the scrap heap to a degree by those running our institutions and many other people making those decisions is because no one wants to be judged? You said, you actually care about what people are up to. Is it because it's just hard? It's hard, and so all of the other options are just easier?
Yeah, quite. I mean, I often, there's a meme of a very smug-looking man in glasses, this cartoon, that says, but Jesus said exactly this. No, I'm not a Christian. I have nothing but contempt for your religion. But if I put it in terms you'll understand, you might agree with me. And you get this all the time with people that say, well, Jesus said, don't judge. Actually, no, he said, don't judge lest you also be judged. And he said, do not look at the mote in your brother's eye when you have a log in your own. Essentially, don't be a hypocrite, apply consistent moral standards, be a living paragon and exemplar of virtue before you go and espouse virtue out into the world. Otherwise, you're praying on a street corner and you're no better than the scribes or Pharisees, which eventually put them to death. So the idea that we have jettisoned Christianity for something better, when that better just seems to be self-service, distraction by the dangling baubles of unfulfillable, ever-propagated desires, a Faustian pact with technology to generate those desires and displace human relationships, and ultimately the role of humanity in creating and existing on the earth. The idea that that's been better for anyone, that we just instead sate our screaming consciences with shallow compliments from other people who we can't really respect and who are only going to be around for one very selfish generation. I think that's been a deliberate cruelty inflicted upon people. But it's also been a sort of slow, evolved fall from a hierarchical church with apostolic succession. I mean, Max Weber documented this pretty well, in that the exporting of the particular type of Puritan Christianity to the New World of Americas by Britain set in motion the Protestant work ethic and then the secularizing logic of liberal capitalism, which has now devoured Christianity wholesale, and did so through things like bookkeeping, but also the belief in grace through works, that you can derive whether or not you're predestined for heaven or hell by how prosperous you are. It sets material wealth as the marker of mankind's success. It exalts mammonism rather than the kind of virtue that would be displayed through loving one another, willing the good in the other, in the Thomas Aquinas definition. And so I think this is why, actually, a lot of young men particularly are returning to Christianity through that self-selection mechanism of the internet rediscovering tradition, but they're returning to the Orthodox Church and Latin Mass-going Catholicism. I've taken my nan to Novus Ordo, admittedly, but my priest watches my shows, who's very traditionalist. Mass for the last now 2 years. My girlfriend, soon to be fiance, haven't picked the day yet, but has been going with me since we basically met. And that has cultivated a community around us, and I've met viewers there, and I see dads taking their kids there, and it raises the salience of the need to have a family, because if no one in your environment in your 20s is having weddings and having kids, then again, you indefinitely defer it, and you think of yourself as atomized consumer unit. And so from the central principle of You have unique human dignity implanted into you by a deity that loves you, and the first act of love was creation. From there emanates out all the wholesome family values, all the neighborly consideration, all the high trust civilization that has waned away and been deprived from my generation. And what's the alternative to that? A kind of demonic wedding to technology and having nobody around you when you're elderly to care for you and hold your hand when you pass away? No wonder so many people are rejecting that option.